Hey all, I may be a little bit early, I think. On one screen it said time was up, and on another screen it said I think 30 seconds were left. So I'm not quite sure yet. Let's find the stream, find out if anyone can hear me or if I'm just talking to myself. Okay. Can anyone hear me on there, and how's the video? Trucker, thank you, sir. Okay, Robin, thanks for joining us. Easy. Hello, Dakota Simon. Justin, thank you for coming again. Scott Bogfoot, what's up, dude? Rodney Smith, Phil Salt, that guy Brian, Andrew W. Thank you for joining us. Ricky, Steve Uhas, Florida Vapes, or just Fla Vapes? Fla Vapes? Um, Stian Haverson, hello, thank you. Duncan Yo-Yo, one, thanks for joining us again. Ricky, exclamation, 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 exclamation. Thanks for joining us. Vape Master Chris, John Whistler. Weisler or Whistler? Eric Lee, awesome. And give everyone a few seconds. Join up. Jason, thank you. Bill Richards, hello. Sir, with the MIX, Lambda, something, etc. Greek? Wish I could pronounce that. I'm sorry. Jeff Young, Alan Powell, Kevin Owens, thanks for joining us. Kevin, since I haven't even started taking questions yet, follow the link in the description section to my blog at ECF. Get my recommended batteries table so you see some great choices for 21700. No best. Depends how you're using them, what power levels you're at. It's like asking what the best car is. The car you want for F1 racing is very, very different than the car you're going to use to pick 6 kids up from school. So it matters how you're using the battery, same as using a car or something else. Alex Davila, watching for work out in the field. Awesome. Serge, Kuwait. Yeah, that's Corona is not done with this planet yet. Matt Polly, thanks for joining us. Okay. And today we've got the Goon 1.5 on a Minikin V2, just a cool vape, 75 watts, nothing big. I still like the Minikin. I love the grip on it, and it's funny how heavy it seems when it's small, like this, like the Clutch 2 and some others, the Sigeli Zephyr and some others. So this worked out well. Earlier it was on the Intake Dual on a DNA 200 Effusion Duo, and that was just doing some 70 BG with a touch of mint on that because I wasn't really paying attention. But now I'm on the pineapple peach that a friend of mine has done, and gave me a nice big bottle of the stuff, so that's to last quite a while. And the coffee is in the system, and I think we're ready to do a little bit of talking here. Akeem, thanks for joining us. Akeem or Akeem? Jason, hello. Today's mug is the salamander one. I think most of you have probably seen this one. I don't remember. I'm running out of new mugs. I think actually I have, so there'll be repeats. Same with the t-shirts too. Oh, t-shirt today is Plumes of Hazard. If I remember correctly, they were great guys. They were some of my earliest supporters. When everyone else is screeching and yelling and saying, "How dare I say that EFEST aren't 35 amp batteries?" These guys believed in me. I think they were the first that ever had me on their show, and so I wanted to give them a shout out and a thank you for that support they give me and still give me. It was awesome to see, and they're a really good bunch of guys. Check out the channel, Plumes of Hazard. Hamid, hello from Kuwait. Black Rose 397, aloha. Mr. Brainbogger, welcome. John, okay, is it Whistler? Whistler? Weisler? Bill Richard, yeah. I don't have the threes, but I stopped. It's funny with the Dominican, I never ever had problems with the touchscreen with this. It always worked flawlessly, which is one of the reasons I loved it. It took me, I don't know, 40 swipes, 50 swipes. I was bringing the power level down when I had wicked the coils, just, gently heat the coils, helps pull in the liquid when I'm wetting the cotton. And then I wanted to bump it back up to 75 watts. And it took me at least 40 swipes, all different ways. And it's just really flaky. So I'm going to check into that. I'm really pissed off on that thing. Tracy, I'm good. Thank you. I hope you're doing well today. Steve Uhas, just out of curiosity, how long have you been vaping Mooch? Coming up to 5 years. The end of March, beginning of April 2015, I started vaping. Been a long time smoker. Didn't smoke a lot, but I couldn't stop. And I hated being bitched to some rolled up plant material that I set on fire. So some friends and had some recommendations for me and helped me out, and a whole big long story and evolution through successes and failures trying to find the devices and et cetera. But finally got something that I could use, and I took a 2-week period because I have some allergies, so I want to make sure I wasn't allergic to PG, VG, any of the e-liquids. Took a 2-week period of slowly introducing myself, but I knew the first day, like, oh yes, because for me, so much of it is the mechanical action. So you know right away if vaping is going to address that. The rest of the urge I could handle myself if I could just satisfy some of the mechanical, my oral fixation and the mechanical action of vaping. The rest I could do on my own. Robin Walden, my Dominican doesn't read the ohms correctly anymore, just for building now. Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, it's just so hard. We get such inexpensive devices. We might think we pay a lot, but most of them are quite inexpensive. Well, they're built inexpensively. We pay a lot. And that results in something that's designed to not last a very long time. They don't want you to buy a new one of that one. The vapors just move on to new equipment constantly. I would ask that everybody watching that battery space mooch, if you want me to see your question, battery space mooch. You don't need a pound sign, you don't need the ampersand. Battery mooch that tags it in bright red for me. It's easy for me to see and separate from the inter-chat participant banter, something like that. Uh, if you don't, I may not see your question. I may, but I may not. If you could just do that battery space mooch, not hooch, not moochy, not just plain old mooch, battery mooch on there. Okay, I'll take a question or two. Gree, easy. So I guess for greasy. I'm having some problems with my Ohlén DNA. It's not working properly. Seems to have an intermittent problem. Would reinstalling the software on eScribe sort it out? I I don't know. Certainly try it. The intermittent problem may be in a battery connection. A wire may have come loose. I think I remember hearing some of the DNA mods, some of the it's not the fault of DNA board, but the way they're built. If the wire moves at all, flexes, it can eventually fatigue and snap off, and you lose a connection. So you may have a wire that's snapped off, but it's still touching. So different things connected, disconnected. You can try the software, but usually software related things are it's okay or it's just not okay. Intermittent connections, in my opinion, are often hardware related, and they may have to be repaired. You may have to, or you just maybe take off the cover if you can see a loose wire, bring it to someone who can solder it for you. Attila, thank you, sir. Kind words. Alan Powell, I have a 26650 mech and was sold orange wrap MNKE 26650s. Are they a good battery to run? I tested those a very long time ago. They weren't great performers then. I don't know anything about them now. So I have no idea what the ratings are. I haven't even seen them for sale anywhere when I did my recent 26650 testing. So I'm not able to help you with that. I would say 25 amps sounds really optimistic now. And I just don't know if they're 10 amp, 20 amp, or 30 amp batteries now. I don't know what they're wrapping. Sorry. Go slow if you use them. All right, well, let's dive in. Um, most of the questions come from my Patreon patrons, and they get to see most of my posts. They get to win free mechs. The mechs I test, all except a couple, are given away to them. Any chargers I don't destroy, which is almost all of them. My patrons also get to. So if couple bucks a month, you want to get on any of that, and also just support my testing. There's a link down in the description section. But Giorgio Archie Diacono, I believe, asked, how can we extend the storage time of our batteries? And I realized there was a bigger picture there. Should we even be storing them? And what are the best practices for storing our batteries? And this is going to be for both lithium-ion round cells and lithium-ion lipos. Yes, they're both lithium-ion. They both use lithium ion settling back and forth. The lipos just refers to the polymer, to either a type of plastic sheet inside as an insulator or as a gel they put in the liquid to thicken it up. And the other cells that we might use, like nickel metal hydride NiCads and alkalines, a lot of this pertains to them too, to those types of cells too, if you want to store them. This is going to be for lithium ions because they do discharge. Well, nickel metal hydrides and NiCads discharge very quickly. Lithium ions somewhere in the middle, and then like alkalines and some of the non-rechargeable lithium ions are very, very slow discharges, can be stored for many, many years. Thing to remember with any batteries is they start aging the moment they're manufactured, and that's called calendar aging because it's days go by, years go by. So if we start thinking about storing batteries, we've got to take into account, well, they're going to be aging here. Then there's also cycling aging, which guess what? Is when you cycle them or when we use them. That happens faster, that ages them faster, but there's always a little bit of aging when batteries are just sitting there. So that might make us decide, hey, I'm not going to put my batteries up for storage if they're just going to age. I'm going to rotate through all of them. You might need 6 batteries a day, 3 sets of 2, but you have 12 batteries, so figured to put 6 in storage. Well, if you know they're going to be aging a little bit all the time anyway, maybe just rotate through all 12. That gives some of them a chance to rest. Now you don't have to check their voltages or worried about self-discharging in storage, and it might affect your feelings on whether you want to store things or not. But the storage, the calendar aging, is a lot slower than the cycling aging. When there's so many different ways to approach this, and you practice this stuff ahead of time. But when let's dive into actually some of the things we can do. I think for that, and I have a list here that I'm really checking because there's a lot of different things we can do, and I think a lot of stuff will come out of that as I go down the list. Certainly, something to do before storing batteries if you decide you want to do this. Maybe you have 50 batteries, and some of this is more appropriate now. And the reason I did this power hour on this is with Samsung and LG, and I covered this previous power hour episode, is they're starting to crack down a little more, sending letters to stores requesting that the stores stop selling loose cells. So some people are thinking, hey, maybe I should buy all the batteries I need for the next 10 years. Well, yeah, 10 years is a long, long time to be storing a lithium-ion rechargeable battery. And I'm not reading any of the questions now, so hold off on that. So things to do before you start storing. Check the wraps. When you pull them out of storage, you want them to be ready to roll. So check the wraps. Check underneath the top ring. You may need a magnifier. Is there rust there? Is it e-liquid or goop? It's just dirt and crap that's built up. Slightly dampen alcohol tissue with alcohol. Clean the top and bottom contacts. If there's e-liquid underneath the wrap or you see signs of rust or something, and you feel comfortable doing this and understand the risks, you can rewrap your batteries. It's very easy to do. I talk about risks because not too long ago, I would have 10, 11 batteries that I was rewrapping, and I do them all at once. I, take off all the wraps, I just line them up on the table, then, I wrap them all again. Well, of course, what happens? I hit one at the end, knock them all down. They start all rolling in different places. So I'm desperately trying to keep them from hitting the floor because I don't want them dented. And I sent one of them across the table where just perfect the battery, the tip of the positive end of the battery, because there's no wrap, positive and negative are there, up against the piece of metal, sparks start flying, which of course makes me, move quickly and send more batteries flying. Very exciting day. So yes, there's a little bit of risk, but don't be an idiot like me. Take care and you can rewrap them. You can also check for dents and anything like that that may make you say, it's rusted, it's dented. I'm not going to store this thing. I'll just get new cells and store those. I'll use this in a flashlight or something like that. Store them in sturdy plastic cases, battery boxes, or something that will protect them, particularly if you have them all in a Ziploc bag or something, and they're getting moved around, or they're in a drawer that may be moved around. You want them in something sturdy so they can't touch anything. Long-term storage, it's dirt cheap. It's a good thing to do. Temperature is the enemy for any long-term storage. If you want to extend the storage time, you have to manage temperature. Now, a little bit cooler is better than a little bit warmer. The warmer it is, the faster any chemical reactions, any degradation, oxidation, breakdown of compounds, the higher the temperature, the faster that goes, the faster your batteries are aging. You do not want to put them in the refrigerator or freezer. It just doesn't make that much of a difference unless you're in a tropical year-round location where it's always 40, 45 Celsius, then okay, then it might make a difference to refrigerate. But if you're doing that, put them in doubled Ziploc bags because, excuse me, you don't want, when you pull them out of the refrigerator, all that condensation on the batteries. It's just not good for them. These are steel, nickel-plated steel. Just keep moisture away from them too. Uh, when you're setting them up for storage, you want them between 3.4 to 3.7 volts. The number just really doesn't matter. You just don't want them at a really low voltage because they'll just go lower in storage. And you don't want them stored fully charged because they're spending a lot of time up at a more active, higher voltage level, aging a little bit faster. 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7 doesn't really matter that much. 3.7 is a setting on a lot of chargers now. Well, some chargers now, because it's used to charge lithium ferrous phosphate, LiFePO4 batteries. So that's an opportunity if you vape them down or use them down to 3 volts. You can use this charger on a 3.6, 3.7 volt setting, charge it back up to that point. Now that all your batteries are at the same level, and it's real easy to track their voltages and which might be discharging way too quickly in storage. Otherwise, you find any way you just, use them in a flashlight or whatever way you use them, a power bank or a vaping device, bring them back down to 3.6, 3.7, 3.5, 3.4. Things to avoid to get the longest life during storage. Vibration. Don't shake the hell out of these things. They shouldn't be dropped. They shouldn't be sitting on a compressor for 5 years. Just avoid vibration. Avoid temperature swings. That's not great for me either. No moisture. Seal them up in doubled Ziploc bags if you have to. One, fold it over, put it inside another one. Uh, I'd say put them in a non-flammable location. Don't store them, in between two pillows in a linen closet. The odds are 1 in a million, less that anything could possibly happen, that an internal defect leads to a battery catching fire in storage. But because the consequences are so severe, if that does happen, it's best to just put them someplace non-flammable when they're in storage. I mean, we don't get airbags and anti-lock brakes because we know we're going to get into an accident. We get them because the consequences of not having it can be so severe in case we do get into trouble. Actually, it's time for a vape and a little bit of water. There's yapping. I can check chat too. Attila, recently noticed that some of my 40T batteries, which I had put down charged a few days, weeks later, want to use it and it's down to 2 volts and below. Whoa. Okay, number one, don't use them. Recycle them if you have that option. Otherwise, replace those. Well, you have to replace them either way. Uh, Batteries that are damaged discharge quicker in storage, and I'll be getting to that. So it could be high temperature and damaged cells and release. You may have to, if they're discharging quickly, well, replace them. Or if it's just due to temperature issues or something like that, or you didn't charge them fully, you may have to just charge it fully before you store them. But, put them in at 3.7 volts, let's say, in the storage. You may have to come back once a month and bring it back up to 3.7 volts. Justin, thank you. Yeah, Lynn, a lot of it's a CYA type stuff because they're getting sued by people who are blowing themselves up. And they're like, okay, enough. You weren't supposed to be using these things anyway. Now we're going to be enforcing this. Attila, no problem, sir. Lewis, hello from Middleton, Connecticut. Thank you for joining us. Stang Life Mike. Yay. Thank you for making it for the live show. And I think Tracy says my topside dual sometimes gets 300 plus hits on one set, but then sometimes barely gets 250. It's hard when we do comparisons because literally our mood, the juice, the temperature, um, the length of our pulls, the length of a pull we take when we're chatting with people versus sitting alone, it only has to vary, going from, 2 second pull to 2.5 second pull can make the difference between 300 pulls from a battery or 250. So it's hard to compare, but if you've seen consistently over and over and over lots of days, a difference, that 20% or whatever it is, difference in two sets of batteries, and they're both being charged in the same charger, then one set either might be fakes or they might be older batteries. I'm assuming they're all the same batteries. It's hard to tell though without a lot more information about setups and the batteries and their life and stuff like that. Okay, let's see. Cole Horror, greetings from Scotland. Watch all episodes with the first live. Yeah, first live, I was actually sideways for a while. You're not missing anything. Um, when they're in storage, check the voltage every couple of months. These are loose cells we're talking about now. Buy a $5 multimeter, Harbor Freight or maybe Home Depot or somebody. Usually the voltage function is fairly accurate or accurate enough to check those. And you'll need to check batteries. If you find any that are discharging very quickly or much more quickly than the others. Let's say you got them all at 3.7, you come back and they're all bunched at 3.65, but one is at 3.4. That's one that's damaged. And it's probably shouldn't be in storage because it's just going to be a pain in the butt and it's not going to give you great performance in a couple of years when you're pulling out of storage. Pull it out, replace it with another one, or just take that one out of rotation, out of storage. But when they drop down to, let's say, 3.4 volts again, then you want to bring it back up to 3.7 or 3.6 or something like that. Now, if you want to store, internal battery devices, your electric toothbrush, a cell phone, or an internal battery vaping device, there's some problems we have to talk about now with that because devices, in order to recognize when you're hitting buttons like a vaping device, 3 clicks or 5 clicks, part of the circuitry has to stay on 24 hours a day. Has to be awake, even though, quote, it's turned off, it has to be awake in order to recognize the button clicks. With something like a vaping device with the Ehi regulator board inside, it can draw 2 milliamps from the batteries 24 hours a day, 2 thousandths of an amp. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 48 milliampere hours a day. In a week and a half, that's 500 milliampere hours. If your battery is already fairly discharged, and a week and a half later, 500 milliampere hours more is taken from it. Well, what if you wait 2 months before you check that battery? All your batteries are going to be at 0 volts or close to it because that regulator board was drawing that 48 milliampere hours every single day. It becomes a problem for some of these. Now, things like cell phones, they've gotten very good about drawing just a little bit of current when you turn them all the way off, or as off as you can, not just on standby where the screen turns off, but telling it, hey, force it to sleep. So depending on what device you use, you may have to check them once a week, or maybe you can do it once a month. But just remember, part of the circuitry is still awake in any of those internal battery devices. Uh, you have to follow some of the same or all the same considerations to vibration, moisture, things like that. So put them in Ziploc bags. Don't store them really hot, really cold. But internal battery things, it's just not something you'd normally consider putting into storage. Certainly in a non-flammable location. And I would consider putting them into storage fully charged. Yes, the batteries age a little quicker, but since they're self-discharging faster than just loose cells, I would consider putting them into storage fully charged, particularly if you have a vaping device using a Yehi regulator board, which is, every week and a half taking 500 milliampere hours out of the batteries. That can be a big problem. If you find any batteries, whether loose cells or an internal battery device, that have dropped below 2.5 volts, recycle it. That's it. Don't try to say, oh, don't try to revive it, don't try to recharge it. Anything under 2.5 volts, it's just not worth it. They're just batteries. Replace them. Anything under 2.5 volts, can start to be damaged. Now, it's time dependent and voltage dependent. The lower the voltage, the longer the amount of time below 2.5 volts, it can be damaged. The damage is cumulative. If it builds up enough to a certain point, when you charge the battery, you can cause an internal short circuit, cause a fire, and or an explosion. This is bad. It's just not worth it. Do what you have to do to keep them from dropping to 2.5. If it happens, just curse and mutter, replace the battery. Quick break. Robin, Waldron, I just bought a Niquadah UM4. I hope to start charging all of my 18 batteries at 200 to 300 milliamps, then a 500 to extend battery life. Am I just wasting my time? I think so. The difference between 200, 300, and 500 for any of our modern cells, anything rated 15 amps or higher, even the 10 amp batteries, you're just not going to see a difference between 2, 3, and 500 milliamps. Between 200 milliamps and 1 amp, maybe. But we're abusing them pretty badly in our mods anyway. So you could try it out and experiment and see, but I don't think you're going to see a difference. I'd say charge them at 500 milliamps, half an amp. Larry Puckett, I use VTC5As. Is it better to own four, charge two, and take turns both pairs, or just store one pair and charge the other pair? I spoke about this earlier. I recommend rotating, especially with that few, quote unquote, batteries. Just rotate through them all. Batteries don't like being stored. They're aging in storage. Check out the beginning of the video where I talk about calendar aging. I recommend rotating through them. Serge, my mod shows atomizer zero point 0.1 ohms more than actual when idle, but when using it, starts showing the correct resistance. Can this lead to battery damage? No, I don't think that's leading to any kind of battery damage. Just use batteries that have high enough current rating for the power you're running at. 20 amp battery, three times that, 60 watts. 25 amp battery, three times that, 75 watts per battery. You double that if you have a two battery mod. If you have two 20 amp batteries, each can do 60 watts, it's 120 watts. It may have to do with if you're using stainless steel, the resistance changes. I don't know why the resistance would be just bouncing and shifting. Check your connections though. Make sure the posts are tight onto the coil. Make sure your threads and the 510 pin are clean. Make sure your battery contacts are clean. Make sure the threads and the atomizer are clean. Use a slightly damp, alcohol dampened cloth. And let's finish up with this. Now, when you take them out of storage, because they've been aging there, don't expect the same performance. There's going to be some degradation. Now, it might be a little, might be a lot. There's some things, oxidation can happen inside. Compounds can decompose and put layers of goop on places that they're not supposed to be. Things you can give it a cycle or two. Let's say you lose 10% of the performance, whatever that means. Maybe 5% of that is recoverable. The other 5% is non-recoverable. So by cycling it once and just do it using it normally, but just don't expect full performance, you can get a little bit of it back. But we're talking, if it's been in storage for a year or two or longer for these effects to show up, putting it a month in storage, 3, 4 months in storage, that's really not going to make any kind of difference. There's a little bit of degradation, but you're not going to be recovering a lot of it. So can we store batteries for a long time? Yes, but have reasonable expectations for what you're going to get at the other end. You've got to make the effort to store them properly, to maintain them. You got to be checking voltages during storage. Use the recommendations I had to extend the storage time if you need that. If you want 5 years of storage, you're going to have to be really good to those cells. And I would only put new ones in storage. If you find ones that are discharging quickly, if you have used batteries you want to put in storage, well, then expect, they're not going to be the same to a greater degree at the other end of the storage. So we can store them, we can extend the storage, but just take the care to make them last as long as possible in storage and come out the other end as best we can. And that's for today. Let's see what we can come up with for a half hour of questions. Willie W. When will I retest the iJoy 26650? Was that one of the ones? Did I just retest it? Oh no, that was the Aspire. All I remember was a bit of yellow. I don't know. It's not in the testing queue, so I don't know when I'll be testing it. I would assume They're using one of those 20 amp cells or worse now. Don't use it hard. Robin Waldron, can I do anything to remarry batteries of the same age that have been used in a single battery device? Technically, no. There is no remarrying. But for a lot of times, see, what we have to do for any recommendations, anyone has to assume worst case because we don't know if the person we're talking to is the worst case or not. So we have to assume it for everybody we talk to. If anyone can be the worst case, we have to assume it for all. So for a lot of times, yeah, if they've been used the same way, you could remarry them. But I can never recommend that because I don't know the condition of your batteries. And you have to say, if you're going to take the chance, if you're going to take the risk of either poor performance or if you're not monitoring how bad the batteries might become mismatched, a rare, tiny chance of a battery venting or I doubt it going to thermal runaway, perhaps a battery venting. That's which is why we always recommend, once you're divorced, you can never remarry again. It just covers all the circumstances we don't know might exist or not. Gumo, did you do any updated testing for VTC 5D batteries? Yeah, in fact, I've got in the testing queue. It should be later this week, maybe early next week. I'll be posting the test reports for 5Ds. I did do some retesting because I noticed they're becoming a lot more available lately. Scott Bogfoot, how are batteries recycled and where do they go? Uh, the recycling, it depends who gets them. Some do very thorough recycling. Some just peel off the metal and recycle the steel, and maybe, hopefully, just take the goop and send it off to somebody else. Others will recover the solvents, the cobalt, and the metals in the materials and the steel. It really depends where they go. Where do they go? National or internationally. Some of them just get gathered up and they're shipped off to China, where a large number of them get sorted through and reassembled into battery packs. Others will get broken down and the steel or other compounds are taken out of them. Anonym, battery mooch at the beginning. Your thoughts on graphene batteries? Touch on this a little bit in the last power hour. True graphene batteries are a little step up, a nice little step up, typically in energy. The graphene allows more lithium ions to be put into it. There's nothing else superior about that. The graphene is used in the negative part of our batteries instead of graphite, which is a lot less expensive. So graphene batteries are typically more expensive. True graphene batteries are more expensive, but they should be higher capacity uh, for whatever current rating that they had originally by switching to graphene. Now, it's just another evolutionary step for the batteries we're using, and I welcome it. But I'm hoping they can be made affordable, and I'm hoping I know some already are, but I'm hoping there aren't a lot of companies that say graphene without doing a high performance graphene negative part anode of the battery to truly use what graphene can give us. Steve Uhas, do we hand any Connell over where recycled batteries go? Do we hand any Connell over where recycled batteries go? I'm trying to figure out what your uh, spell check swapped here. Sorry, I can't work that one out. Scott Bogfoot, why do AA, AAA set of batteries leak, and is there any way to avoid it from happening? Um, I remember learning technically why that happens, but I've forgotten the answer. Um, Certainly don't leave them in a device where there's slow current draw. If I remember correctly, that's one of the things that do it. Take them out of the devices. I don't remember enough to be able to help you with that. That's got to be a great YouTube video for that one. Steve Uhas, have any control where batteries go for recycling? Well, you could, if you, let's say you go to Home Depot and they have a battery recycling bin there, you can ask them if they know where it goes or check their website. That may be more customer support on their website to get the answer. If someone working at Home Depot probably wouldn't know unless it's printed right there in the battery bin. Best Buy, the other places, you can go to the website, maybe check customer support and find out where they go. Now they may just say, "Oh, we sell it to the next level up in recycling that takes them a bunch of chains," and then you may have to find out who that is and find out what they do. Do they ship it to China or the Philippines or somewhere for recycling, and who knows what happens then? Or do they send it to an American corporation that's really doing a lot of recycling? A lot of that stuff goes out of country because recycling you want to do as inexpensively as possible, because it's a tremendous amount of labor and work to get a little bit of raw materials back. Duncan Yo-Yo 1, let's say you buy a lot of batteries. Would the best way to marry them, assuming they're all the same type of cell, to be measure their internal resistance and capacity? Duncan, yeah, if you've got the equipment, the best way to do it is measure the internal resistance, measure the capacity. I'd say capacity, if you're using them at lower power levels, capacity takes priority. Let's say you've got them all about the same. If you're doing high power levels, then internal resistance would be the more important, be the priority for matching. But otherwise, most people just marry the ones that they buy together. But if you've got, you want to get the last 1% life out of something, so you want to, discharging as evenly as possible, not one going down sooner than the other and causing a weak low battery alert to come, then high power, use internal resistance, lower power, use capacity. You can marry them up that way. PSS, I've never had a battery vent. I'm assuming I will know if it were ever to happen. What is the best thing to do if it should happen? If it's just venting and not thermal runaway, you'll know a slimy smell. Slimy smell. It's only Wednesday. A slimy feel and a distinct chemical smell. I combine those two. When you'll know the smell for the electrolyte. A nasty odor, a sweet, sickly sweet paint thinner type of solvent odor. And that's for venting. In thermal runaway, now for that, the stuff is toxic as hell. So you don't want to touch it. You want to clean off everything as best you can. Put on some gloves, throw away the batteries, recycle the batteries, tape off the positive contact, put them in some Ziploc bags, and recycle them. For a If it goes in the thermal runaway, if you've got a mod and all of a sudden you hear it hissing and spitting, and this thing's about to catch fire and maybe burst, just drop the mod. Get away from it. And don't drop it onto carpet, but also you can't run with it to the sink. You want to get rid of it. So hopefully you're not standing in the middle of a room on carpeting and you have to decide, drop it on the carpet, or can you run to the sink without it exploding in your hand? But for just venting, you'll smell it, certainly, on there, and you'll see deposits up at the top. But for me, the odor is the easiest way to detect it. Other name 1000. My local Home Depot won't take loose cells anymore, only power tool packs. Okay. I guess they may have had accidents, people just chucking loose cells in there, not bothering to tape off the positive ends and stuff like that. That's sorry to hear. That's bad to hear. Scott Bogfoot, can you explain the pros and cons of battery fire bags? The LiPo fire bags? Well, problem is you can't charge the batteries in there because we charge the batteries in the charger, and you don't want to put the charger in the bag and trap all that heat. That's bad for the cells. So the chance that you will think a battery is about to go into thermal runaway and have time to take it out of your device, out of the charger, and put it into a fire bag, I can't see that ever happening. So for loose cells, I don't see any benefit to them. Now, for LiPo packs, where you've got the charger, you've got the cable, and then the pack, those you can put in a fire bag, a LiPo bag, and there, hey, it'll just start flapping around, flying around. A good one can help a little bit. Maybe you put the bag in an ammo can, leaving the cover open, and you charge that way if it's a LiPo pack. But for loose cells, I see limited utility because you can't put the whole charger in the bag. Steve Uhas, last question. Do you think we should be supporting MolyCell over other battery companies since they seem to be the only ones supporting the batteries being used for vaping? Yeah, I mean, I've given up trying to tell people, hey, I think this, or you should think that too. I present the data, a little bit of my opinion, and everyone can choose for themselves. But MolyCell is the only manufacturer, not battery wrapper, manufacturer who supports vapors openly, is willing to sell to us. For that, right there, on top of the fact that they have some of the best cells available to us, means, yeah, I think you should buy Molly cells. You may be a low power vapor though, and you want, 5,000 milliamp per hour, 21700, or, 5,500 milliamp per hour, 26650. So you're going to go to other companies, or you may want Samsung 20S or Samsung 30Ts because you're an ultra high power mech user. Then I understand you're using them. But certainly if someone has my recommendation, my best all around performance picks, which means they're not the best for anything particular, just best all around performer, which is damn good, are the Moly cells, the P26A and the P42A. Darabant Yoko or Joko? How to test my own batteries for internal resistance and max amp output. Testing for current ratings requires high current discharger, 20 amps or higher at least, and a thermometer, a digital thermometer that uses thermocouples, not thermistors. It's very involved. You need multiple discharges. You need to compare the performance to other batteries and to the data sheets. Testing for current ratings is very difficult. Testing internal resistance you can do with meters. The YR1030 off of AliExpress that test AC internal resistance. DC internal resistance, you can use the ESR meter from progressiverc.com. I forgot how much it costs. It's around 100 or less, $100 or less. The YR1030 for AC internal resistance is around $35, $40 plus shipping from AliExpress. And you can test capacity with a lot of chargers right now, but a lot of them aren't very accurate. I would say go with like the X-Tar Dragon or something like that. So it's an investment in cost to be able to do this kind of testing. Akim, is there a way for us customers to see on the battery from which batch they were from? Serial number. No serial numbers. You can see batch codes and date codes on Samsung, LG, Sony, Panasonic, Sanyos, and others, but like LG, Samsung, and Murata, Sony's, you can see the date and batch code on them. And for most of the batteries, you can check online. Battery Bros, BROS, has a date code, a checker, a tool on their website. Tracy Thompson, I hope you guys can't hear my stomach rumbling because it is fierce, the amount of rumbling that I have right now. I am like crazy dying hungry. So I don't know how much later than 1 o'clock we're going to go because I'm ready to just start sucking on a juice bottle thinking it has some calories in it. When I say juice, I mean, e-liquid, not orange juice. What I would give for a chocolate chip cookie right now. Oh my, it was a real mistake saying that. Um, just not as many calories in water as I want. I think that coffee right before I came on got things going. My stomach's like, oh, coffee. That must mean we're having food because my stomach's not very smart. So it started zapping out and getting ready. Not that any of this is any interest to anybody. Next question. Michu. Oh, no. I'm to Meku? Ponhu? Ponhu? It'd be so cool if you guys came in later and I saw it saying, phonetically how I should pronounce them. If a battery discharges quickly on its own, can it still be used? I recommend not because it's leaking like crazy. Internally, it's a sign of damage. I say not use it. And Steve Yuhas, wow, thank you very much for that super chat. I really appreciate it. Steve says, thanks for everything you do and answering our questions. Keep up the good work. Thank you for supporting me and supporting my testing. That's awesome. Thank you, sir. So, Meku, I would say no. If it's unknown, if it discharges on its own any faster than several months, then it's damaged. Replace it. It's just not worth it. Eventually, down the road, other damage can lead to that battery maybe catching fire. So, I realize in some countries batteries can be frightfully expensive compared to what people earn, but it's just not worth it when it comes to our safety. Scott Bogfoot, I need firebag used for storage. Ah, sir. Yeah, actually, that I would say that's a good idea. Now, they could shoot out the one end of the bag. This, I think it's called the battery box, and it's an insulation lined, ventilated box, and I think they're in a couple of sizes. That could be ideal. I was going to get one for testing until I realized how unpleasant the testing would be because I'd have to send it a thermal runaway, a lot of batteries inside of it. So a big LiPo bag. If you're getting cheap eBay bags or Amazon, I'd say get two of them. Put the batteries in one, don't fold it over, but then maybe put it in sideways inside a larger bag. Just, so one doesn't melt because it's a crap bag or something like that. Or if you can get a good quality one. But battery boxes, when well reviewed, there's stuff on YouTube, and that's a great way to store a lot of batteries and internal battery devices and stuff like that. Nefarian, is there a good moly cell alternative to the 30T? Well, the P42A, which is better than the 40T, is the 30T hits harder for about first third of the discharge than the P42A because it's higher capacity, over 4,000 mAh, actually holds its voltage up higher and is better in a mech and a regulated device than the 30T. But if you're someone in a mech is taking 10 pulls, 20 pulls, and then replacing the battery, then the 30T is still better. But the P42A is a frightfully good battery. Hazazita, have you done or plan to do any testing to see if the vent holes in a typical mech are able to handle a venting battery? I would love to do those tests. I would love to. But being here in the middle of Manhattan, pipe bombs are frowned upon. Ha! Who would have known? So I can't do that testing. I would love to, because I think that's really important testing. Not to call out a manufacturer, but just to see if general practices by the mech manufacturing community, whether it's China or in the States or in Europe, is adequate for cells and thermal runaway. But I would have to do cells and thermal runaway testing, find ways to reliably get the cells that go into runaway, find the ones who are most energetic at that, and then start the pipe bomb tests, which is literally what I'd be doing. And there's just no way I can do that here in Manhattan. I ain't doing it in this apartment. Yeah, and I'm not doing it out back there. Too many people looking down on us into the back, and someone will call SWAT, and I will be shot by a sniper. Susan Cooper, how long can a properly tended battery last in years, please? I covered that a little bit earlier. It depends on the battery and its condition. Assuming a new cell, it's got to be a year, or there's something wrong with the battery. I would think at least 2 years, but well tended, I would want anything I put up to go at least 5 years. But that whole time, it's losing performance. So I recommend just rotating through all the batteries. But if you are going to store them, well-tended, new cells, I would really want 5 years out of it. And I would not be really surprised if I got, I actually would be a little surprised at 10 for lithium-ion. But for 5, I would hope that's how long they'd last. Joshua builds. I often don't see positive terminal insulators paired with new wraps. Do we need to replace seemingly fine insulators? Oh, and I thought I turned off that phone. There's going to be 3 more rings, folks. No, no. If the ring is in perfect condition, there's no need to replace it, which is probably why they don't include it standard with wraps. All right, we get it. You're calling us. I know it's 4 rings, but it's just so frustrating when after hearing 1, you have to deal with another 3. You know, and I told myself, hey, make sure to, put the phone on silent for 2 hours. And what did I do? I went and got a coffee instead. Sorry about that. Let's see. I think I need to scroll down much because I just got up to the point in chat where Steve 142. Okay, I'm about 5 minutes behind. The truth will set you free asks, go get some food quick. We won't mind. No, dude, it's okay. I have to have major lunch on up. I appreciate that. Thank you. Dokyos, what are your thoughts on ordering vape stuff, batteries, mods, atomizers that are marked authentic and are allegedly the real deal? Your hat is on point today. Thank you. I was going to say thank you, sir, but that's reflex, and I don't know actually your gender. Your picture is certainly not a sir. What are your thoughts on ordering vape stuff? It's funny how gender biased we can be. You think vaping, oh, it's mostly guys. Well, it is mostly guys, but that doesn't mean you can assume it's a guy. And I hate when I do this gender bias crap. I like to think I'm slightly enlightened. Back to your question. Ordering vape stuff that are marked authentic. Well, if they are authentic, that's fine. If they're authentic and they're not, then I have big issues with that company. That's bullshit. But otherwise, being marked authentic, like Fast Tech, who might sell clones and authentic. Authentic might be the only way to know you're not getting the clone version from a company that has both, and that marks both and is open and honest about it. You want the one marked authentic if you're looking for the authentic one. Darabont. So how do I know my year-old Samsung 25Rs are safe around 45 watts? Ah, trick question, because they were never safe to begin with. These cells were never meant to be used outside of fully protected, physically and electronically, fully protected battery packs. They were never safe to begin with. There's always a little risk of using them. The risk goes up depending how we use them. So how do you know they're still safe? You don't. The more they get used, the more they get abused, the more they age, the higher the risks go. What's the voltage drop on my mod? Do they run hot? When start to die? Okay, so clues as to when the risks are really going up is physical damage, of course, reduced performance. If it's not running as long, if the voltage is sagging more, maybe you used to vape them down to 20% at a particular power level, but now you can only vape them down to 50%. That is a real good indicator that battery is getting damaged, losing performance, and it's time to think about replacing them. Certainly, any battery that starts acting weird, any battery that is running hotter at the same power levels, that's a really good sign. Start replacing that battery. Since they were never safe to begin with, and they only get less safe over time, the more conservative you are, the safer you're running these batteries. But in the end, unfortunately, it's up to each of us to decide when we're going to do this, when we're going to replace them. Dokios, ordering authentic stuff from AliExpress, Fast Tech. AliExpress, I mean, for mods and stuff, I'd say don't order cells from any of them. Get that from, known vendors. But for gear and stuff like that, well, if they say it's authentic and you trust them, then I have no issues one way at all with that. Tracy Thompson, is there any smart battery chargers or Wi-Fi? Are there any smart battery chargers or Wi-Fi to be able to test your batteries like internal resistance? Things like the Gear Falcon, which got some 88s at the end, the X-Star Dragon, something with a 4 plus, but the Dragon has some pretty significant. You're going to spend some time with the instruction manual, but they had almost accurate internal resistance. Internal resistance is hard to measure accurately. Push in the battery contacts when it's making the measurement. The best way to tell if it's measuring it well is how consistent it is. It should not vary by more than 1/1,000,000th of an ohm. If that 1/1,000,000th, 1,000th of an ohm, 1 milliohm. Um, those two I can recommend. The Opus doesn't do that. Lots of battery chargers can test internal resistance, but they're wildly inaccurate. The readings are just all over the place. You want to be able to come in and test it 5 times a day, 3 days in a row, every single time taking it out, and only vary by 1 milliohm, thousandth of an ohm, and very few can do that. Capacity, if you're testing wear or degradation of a battery, capacity testing is much better. They're not that much more accurate, but they're a little more consistent with it, most of the chargers. The truth will set you free. If I can get the battery here in the UK, I can do the pipe testing bot for you? No, no. I will never coordinate or work with someone to set something like that up, because if something happened to them, I would be devastated. And also, you're going to need maybe 20 of each of several different batteries. You're going to need at least 2 of every mod, and you're going to be doing at least 100 tests. It's going to take months. It's going to take thousands of dollars. This is not something where you take one mod and do it. You're trying to set up a comprehensive industry-wide statement that you can make about the suitability of these mods for them. Now, if you take one battery and one mod and you put it in a fire so you know the battery will go into runaway and the mod explodes, well, okay, you can say that mod explodes. But if it doesn't explode, we can't say it's safe. We can't say it won't do that, or we can't say it won't explode for every battery that's out there. That's why you need to try lots of different batteries in multiple versions of the mod, because what if there's build consistencies for a mod? You take 3 mods of one particular model. If all 3 of them don't blow for a dozen different batteries, put in mod multiple times. Now you can say, hey, this one seems to hold up to thermal runaway well. So thank you for the offer, but it's a monster set of tests to do. Brad Palmer, how about Central Park for pipe bomb tests? Could be, except the number of tests that I have to do. And you'd be surprised the number of cameras that are floating around there now. SciPec, what do you think about box mods offering balancing charging? Well, the DNA charger does accurate balance charging, as long as it's been wired properly. The other ones, I don't know enough who does it well and who doesn't. I'd say, go online and get some of the scuttlebutt, some of the rumors as to which do that better. Overall, it doesn't have a great reputation. If you're not using an internal battery mod, you have to trust them. Hopefully it's a mod where you can check the voltages of the batteries and see if one of them is habitually way off. Scott Bogfoot. If I use my multimeter for testing voltage, is it as straightforward as I think? Yes, actually. 2 terminals, doesn't matter if you're positive or negative, but you can use the red on positive, black on negative, set it to DC volts, DCV, put the 2 terminals there, give it time to settle, you're done. That's it. Vague cleanliness on the contacts and other ones. The readings could go really bad when the battery gets too low, like my flukes, get really flaky a little bit before it says, oh, change battery. To do my older flukes, the 30-year-old flukes, the newer ones don't do that. I should say that flukes are marvelous meters, but any decent meter is just fine. Even the free $2 Harbor, the $2 otherwise Harbor Freight ones work well. You can't use them for checking coil resistance or internal resistance, but you can use them for battery voltage. So yes, I agree. Willie W, what 4-bay charger can terminate charging at 3.6 volts so you're testing LiFePO4s and LFP, lithium ferrous phosphate cells. I don't know. Well, the Dragon you can set to anything you want. The Gear Falcon, I don't know. You might be able to check that, but most of them seem to have 3.7 volts, which is too high. You can charge at 3.7. I don't recommend it. Recommend at 3.6, but check out the XR Dragon and see if the Gear Falcon does it. I haven't tested it, but it's got a great reputation. I need to find some money and get a pair of those and test them, because I think those are a pair that I'm going to disassemble very carefully. Hopefully they survive the drop testing, because I think I'll end up wanting to use those. The truth will set you free. If I can get to the pipe bomb testing. Didn't I address that? Thank you for the offer, but I'm not going to have anyone do dangerous testing for me. I just can't. Dokios, salute you, sir, and I am indeed a male. Okay. Just have a very nice icon. The truth will set you free. Justin, could you please block the truth will time out. The truth will set you free for me. He's just repeating things over and over. Daryl, thanks for joining us. Rath, how to safely discharge a battery. I want to test my battery capacity, but my cheap X-Star VC4, thank you, can only measure milliamp charged into the battery. You'll need an electronic load that stops at a certain voltage and counts it. Go onto AliExpress, or you'll need to, you can follow the link to my blog at ECF, go to my charger test, check the summaries for my battery charger test. You need one like the Dragon or the Gear Falcon that you can discharge all the way down to 2.5 volts, recharge, and then discharge again, because you want discharge capacity, not charge capacity. Nobody vapes. I generally only vape my cells down to around half percentage, I guess 50%, before charging and switch out cells. I only use moly cells, so I vape them down more. You can. Mods will stop at around 3.1, 3.2 volts. That's not 0% for the battery. That's just 0% for the device. So you can go down to 0% every single time in a regulated mod, and you're still treating your batteries well in terms of the voltage you're discharging it down to. Some die codes and DNA boards you can set to 2.8 or 2.5, but you have to set them to 2.8 or 2.5. So no problem going to 0% in just a regular regulated mod. Other name 1000. I wouldn't go to a Ford dealer that sold fake Fords. Why should I trust people who sell clones that are showing up at just rip-offs of intellectual property? I can't speak for everybody and for their moral judgments. I'm not going to buy the clones. I don't support that. Someone was asking about authentics. Should they buy from there? I'm saying yes. If it's marked authentic, buy from there. I wasn't saying to, if you're referring to that, to buy clones from that place. But people are going to do it, and we can't say, "Oh, okay, I'm not going to answer your question because the sale sells that." I hear what you're saying. I don't support intellectual property theft, but we have to recognize it's going to happen. And if someone tells me they want to go on a site that sells clones, they want to buy the authentic, I don't see that's a problem if they're buying the authentic, if that's what you're referring to. BT6A, Justin, though, is still a decent battery, but not the best choice. The 20S or the 30T. Scott Bogfoot, thank you, sir, for your kind words. Justin, I think the list has gotten longer. Um, I don't remember the list, but you can always check with Molicel, whoever was asking. Tony M, you didn't use my name, but happened to catch it. What is the best 6 battery charge for us out there? I don't have any battery charger recommendations because what each of us looks for is completely different from other people. For the 6, I don't remember. I haven't tested a lot of 6ers, but you could check my link to the blog at ECF, go to my charger list of charger tests, see if I have a 6 there, check the 6s, and see if the list of things that I found are good enough for you to buy it without the other things pissing you off too much. Nobody vapes. Oh, Tobai. Actually, that's a really good thing. Using the YR1030 AC internal resistance meter is fantastic, as long as you get placement right for measuring the resistance of coils because it is so accurate at very low resistances. Nobody vapes. Thank you for answering my question. Great info. Thank you for your kind words. John Whistler, and Mooch we trust. No, never trust me. I don't know. I don't know anything. Always question, no matter who it is. If you think genuinely you've done your homework and you think they're not right, don't just rant and say, "You're wrong." Ah! But if you've done your homework and you think they're wrong, question them. We make mistakes too, all of us. Anybody who's on YouTube. Brad Palmer, isn't Fogstar the authorized Molly cell supplier in the UK? That sounds right. There's one or two in the UK. Mr. Mufu to you. Battery Mooch at the front, and I make sure to see it, but I happen to catch it. Is it okay to always charge in auto mode? I don't know what auto mode means for your charger. If it automatically selects the charge rating, it's not automatically okay if it picks something that's too high. There's an XTAR that can charge at 3 or 4 amps, and I forgot which batteries, but I had an especially good connection when I put it in, and it picked 4 amps. And yeah, my batteries were rated for 4 amps, but I wanted 2 amps. And so I had to switch it and go it back down. So it's not always okay. I'd say, you got to know the ratings of your batteries. Otherwise, charge at 1 amp. If it goes higher than that, set it back to 1 without knowing a lot more information about your setup. Tony M, thank you for your input. That's what you said to me. Sorry. You're welcome. All right, let's go with just a couple more questions. Tilla, you're welcome. Other name 1000 wasn't talking about what you said as much as the sellers. If someone also sells clones and they told me something is authentic, why would I believe them? Who to say that is authentic? That's the problem. You have to put a lot of trust in. Thank you for the explanation. If they say they have authentics and clones, or they were known for selling clones and they say they have authentics now, there's a lot of trust we have to have with certain vendors, which is why, community feedback and other things is so important. Pat Falvey, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while. Let's go. 2 more questions. Uno, dos. Rajan or Rahan? Sagu. My Mi Boxer automatically selects up to 3 amps, so I always have to adjust it down. Yeah, and 3 amps can be fine for like a Molicel P26A or something, or a 30T or a P42A. But you know, if you're putting 30 Qs and BTCs in there, yeah, 3 amps is a lot. It's okay. It's just going to shorten the life of the battery. Yeah. Phil Lee, my Nightcore SC4 defaults to 2 amp and it takes 2 button holds and 18 clicks to change it to 1 amp every single time. I don't have the patience for that. I'd rather spend the 25 bucks or even $100 if I'm getting an good analyzing charger than not have to do that all the time. You know, donate the charger to somebody else and make them happy. Okay, we'll actually go with one question and then that's it. Mike Berg, you're welcome. I do love pineapple peach. I didn't think I'd like a pineapple vape, but it's one of those love-hate kind of fruits. I like them fresh, but didn't think I'd like it. Like banana. Love bananas. Hate banana vape. Nefarian, see you around. Willie W. I was wrong last Sunday. Ooh, I was wrong about Nightcore chargers generating a lot of heat because the latest ones are all USB and much cooler. Thank you for the distinction. Nightcore chargers, I was talking about, and I was talking about the AC/DC internal power supply. That's what creates the heat. And I have not tested the ones that are USB only. I would expect them to run cooler. Willie W saying it is. I mentioned AC/DC last time, but I was only talking about the AC/DC ones with just the power cord running in, not a separate brick or USB one. So Willie W, thank you very much. Justin's VTC 5A datasheet says max charge 6 amps. Yeah, that's really optimistic. But yeah, you just if you give up cycle life. But thank you. I think there's some others up there with some crazy high rates. Pat Falvey, go. Thank you for your kind words. Companies using your name pay you a few bucks. No, they don't. I have patrons who support me, and that's wonderful. And some companies, and it's fantastic to have them. But most of the companies that use my name, my test results don't aren't patrons or supporting me in any way. We have to do something about that someday because you think they'd want to support the person's creating the test results they're using or mentioning. Um, okay, all I think that will be everything. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to thank you for joining us here. Willie W., thank you, sir. I love being called out when I don't give enough information and when I'm wrong. So thank you for that additional information. I'm glad I was able to read it out here, and at least the regular followers would hear that. And certainly, if I test a UM or the newer Night Course series, I'll be mentioning the temperatures on that. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for the super chat. Hope you can join us on Sunday at 7 p.m. Again, if you support my testing and you'd like to get 90% of my posts, chance to win mechs or regulated mods, consider becoming a $2 patron or more if you think my testing is worth it. Links are down below. Otherwise, a link to PayPal for a one-time donation is always appreciated. I don't use this for pizza, beer, or Doritos. I use it to support my testing efforts. Everyone, I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks for joining us.